There we go. How many producers does it take to turn on the mic? Hi, my name is Leah Smith. Originally, I'm filling in for my great friend and fabulous producer, Cora Atkinson. I think she was on the material that went out. But I am a producer. I've been a producer for 25 years, producer/director, because I worked primarily early in my career in journalism, where the producer is the director. And now I'm mostly in documentary films, which I'm still doing a bit of producing and directing. My latest film premiered at Sundance in January. It is on the life of Luther Vandross, and it will be released to theaters on November 1st. So we are excited to have it air, and then also it's streaming. It was distributed. It was purchased by CNN Films, so it will be on CNN owned and streaming on Max New Year's Day. So, but other than that, background, like I said, a lot in journalism. I worked with Anderson Cooper for many years. Did several documentaries there. And then also worked with Lester Holt over at NBC. And now I am in the documentary world and happy to be here.
Oh, she's asking if everyone can just speak louder.
Hi everyone, is this loud enough? Guys got here? No, still can't hear it? Better? Anything? Oh, okay. I'm Ashley Bembry-Kaintuck. I am also a producer and also a friend of Cora's. Cora and I worked on Summer of Soul together, which won the 2022 Academy Award for Best Documentary. I'm currently a producer at ESPN. I went from the freelance side to the network side, which has been a very interesting shift. I got into ESPN because I pitched and directed my own film, which is called On and Coppin. And I worked from Discovery Channel, Smithsonian Channel, Travel Network. I've done a little bit of everything. The series that I just worked on just finished up called In the Arena, Serena Williams, which is an 8-part documentary about Serena. And now just like, I started grad school, so I'm balancing grad school and real life, or I should say my work life. But yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Hi, is this too loud? How loud should I be? My name is Sylvee Legge. I'm an agent, a below-the-line agent at the Gersh Agency. I represent cinematographers, production designers, costume designers, editors, line producers, VFX supervisors, pretty much anything that isn't an actor or a writer or director, pretty much. So, yeah, I got started literally in the mailroom at Gersh about 8 years ago and just kept going along with it. And I love what I do. I feel super blessed to have a job right now. I meant to say earlier, like, are we going to talk about how bad the industry is right now? It's not in the best place, so I am just grateful to be able to do what I do every day and to be here on this panel with y'all. Before Gersh, I went to NYU for experimental theater, ironically. Very weird, like, amalgamation of stuff I did before being an agent. Then I worked for Scott Rudin. Then I had nightmares every night for a long time, and quit my job to babysit for a second and take care of myself. Very important. And then I came back, and now I do this.
Amazing. Thank you for such detailed and lovely introductions. All right, so I guess we'll get started with some questions. I guess we could, Sylvie, we'll start with.
Okay.
I guess, what does a typical day look like as a below-the-line agent?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there is no typical day, especially in the I think for any of us, there's no typical day, especially as a producer, and then like, especially in the agency world. I probably have a more typical day than they do because every day I go to work, and I guess it's the same-ish thing every day. But yeah, I would come in a lot of times. Right now, a good amount of my day is devoted to just talking to my clients that are not working and reassuring them like that we can do this, that we can get through it, and just kind of brainstorming different ways to stay a part of the industry while also, you know, we're not making money in it, making money in other ways to still support your family and kind of hang in there. And then with people who are working, obviously like negotiating those deals and speaking with producers. A lot of my day is now devoted to just like going through the trades, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, and through, since at Gersh we also represent talent and writers and directors, so going through all of their current projects and basically cold calling people or talking to people I already know, asking if they have job openings and if I can send them recommendations for cinematographers or editors, and just, you know, pitching and trying to make a miracle happen out of a molehill right now. But yeah, a lot of that. I'm trying to, yeah, but it's pretty much just that all the time, either on the phone or, but it can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes I'll be on the phone for 6 hours at a time doing my nails, and I'm like, I should probably go to the bathroom now. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what they have to say.
Okay, Ashley, can you share some of the key challenges you face when transitioning from directing to producing for ESPN Plus Originals?
Ooh, okay. I mean, the main challenge was not being as hands-on with the creative. I respect everyone's opinion. Sometimes I think that I might have better ideas, so so really taking that step back and listening to what the production companies have to say, and also understanding like they're the ones in charge of the creative. I will say that my team is a lot different than I think most networks, at least the networks that I work with. We do a lot of co-productions, and we are a lot more hands-on, where it's not just getting a cut and sending notes back. We are having brainstorming meetings with our production companies. We're going on shoots with them. Like I was just on a shoot yesterday. So it's really taking that step back and not being so hands-on, which was a big part of the freelance job that I loved.
Cool.
Sorry, for some reason I thought we were all going through our days.
We could. You know what? That's a great point.
Okay.
Can you just explain a typical day or any sort of day that has stood out in your career?
Okay. My days are not typical either. It depends on the project. Like I said, yesterday I was on a shoot in Connecticut. There's a lot of days where I'm in a lot of back-to-back meetings. It depends on what part of production we're in. It could be a lot of pre-planning. This is on the network side. As we're getting closer to air, I'm working with like our content planning team. I'm working with our integration teams. I'm working with our marketing teams to make sure that all the pieces are out there, and then also still working with the production companies to make sure like, oh, are you delivering on time? Do you need anything from me? So it varies. I could have a day where I'm doing nothing, honestly, which is much different from being on the freelance side, where it's like, because you're only on a project for like a year, every day is like go, 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 go. So it varies.
Leah.
So I would be on the other side of that, the production company, and I am, you know, talking to my team every day. My day usually started with a meeting with everybody from my archival producer, our editor, our, you know, our AP, sometimes, you know, we had, I think, bi-weekly meetings with the network to make sure we were on time. So it was my job to keep everyone on time, you know, in addition to actually doing the work of creating the film. So like with Luther, for example, you know, you might be prepping for a shoot, but also I have to still talk to my post-soup. I have to talk to, you know, the director. I have to talk to, you know, like I said, archival. I have to, you know, make sure everything is still running, you know, at full steam ahead. And then there would be days, you know, where you would just, you know, do all of that, maybe fly across country. For us, it was like, okay, then you're waiting all day for Mariah Carey to get herself together to come out and shoot with you for 15 minutes, you know? And then you might fly back, and then, or maybe you'd go to another shoot, and, you know, there were those days too. So as a producer, when you're on the project, you really, especially at working as a producer slash showrunner slash kind of like, you know, seeing over many things, it was definitely very, all the questions came to me. So most of the questions, I would say, you know, and for just keeping things running smoothly. But there are times, right now, like my day looks like I'm just doing my kitchen renovation, because that's where we are in this very difficult world to navigate, you know, in terms of career. A lot of us, I mean, there are projects that I do. I just did a very short project for the DNC where I did the intro film to President Biden that didn't air because they went long that day. So everybody else got their film to air, but ours didn't. Not better or anything. So like, you know, those are some of the things that you know, you pick up and you kind of like navigate this terrain. But it has been difficult, I think, in the last year or so, just trying to, when you are freelance or you do, you know, I have my own production company, trying to really like either pitch or develop, or things have been very slow to move.
Would you say, and this could be for anybody, do you think for people who are entering the industry, is freelancing the way to go, or working in-house with, like, you know, a big hub, is that better? Like, what are the pros and cons to freelance work and then working under like someone like ESPN?
That's a great question. For me, I entered the very roundabout way through journalism. You know, I worked for CNN. That was like my first job in production. It was the pros of it, obviously. It was like you are all hands on deck. You know deadlines, you know storytelling, you know how to find characters. You know, these are all things you had to do every day. And I worked on a show that, you know, handled breaking news very well. But then, and we also did, you know, a lot of commission. You know, I won an Emmy for one of the documentaries we did while I was in Anderson. So there were really great things there. But you are still limited under the news umbrella. It's journalism. You can't explore your stories as in-depth as you would like to. You know, you might cut a 5-minute piece and then they tell you to get it down to 2 minutes for air, and you're like, how is this even possible? So, you know, when you are a freelancer, obviously you can learn the trade, but I do think it is somewhat limited in your role. And maybe you two can speak better to this, but I feel like when the freelancers I know and that I've hired that have worked on my team, they're not doing the same level that, you know, somebody, I shouldn't say freelancers, but entry level, you know, they may not, you know, it might be a production coordinator who just does production coordinating, or there might be, you know, an AP who just, you know, does AP work, whereas, you know, I was writing, when I was an AP, I was writing, I was working with the editor, I was doing, you know, making a lot of decisions, and you just, from being so repetitious, you learn how to do things well. So to me, that's a pros and cons, and also like you're limited in your storytelling capabilities. You have to decide whether do you want to tell many stories or do you want to tell, you know, maybe one story, you know, really well. So that's my thought.
Thank you.
I would say it's better to enter as a freelancer, and this is why. When I was freelance, a lot of times working with the networks, I found that people had no idea what went into production. The stuff that they would ask for was just like, it made no sense because they had no understanding. Whereas
Still
now, unfortunately, yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Whereas now, a lot of my team, a lot of them have come up through ESPN, but a lot of them are also on the freelance side, the production side. And there's a better understanding so that we can speak the same language. And I think when you go network to freelance, you're missing a lot of things versus freelance to network. I think you can learn a lot more as a freelancer in the creative space that will help you if you choose to go into the network. With that being said, I think you also need to know what direction you want to go. So if you want to go like line producing and everything like that, yes, being a production coordinator makes sense. But if you know you want to be in the creative lane, PA to AP is going to make the most sense. And also, just because you're assigned to do a certain duty, speak up. I think that's what really helped me to get to where I was. Like, even though I'm like, okay, I'm just organizing things, I made a point of talking to the directors and the producers like, hey, can I do X, Y, and Z? Like, I'll make sure that I get all of my work done, but can I help with the creative? Can I sit in on these meetings? So I think if you are honest about what you want to do and also honest with the people around you, that's going to make all the difference.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, but also it's a little of a strange question for me to answer because there's no like freelancing, being an agent. I guess there is, but I wouldn't know what that's like. But in terms of my clients, they're all freelance. I don't represent anybody in-house because, you know, I'm their agent. I'm pitching them on all these different projects, and that is how they get their jobs, or through previous relationships. But I don't represent like any cinematographers that are employed by ESPN. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that. But just in terms of the different types of industry employment, I think it completely depends on who you are and your personality and what you want to accomplish and what you've been exposed to already. There are a lot of people that go to fancy film schools and then come to New York and know a lot and get into it and understand so much already. There are people that come here or LA not knowing anything and learn it all on the ground in their first job. And I think that's the majority of what happens, even if you went to some fancy school or whatever. Or, you know, there's a lot of nepotism in this industry. There are a lot of opportunities that are given to people because of where they were at some point in time. And I think it's about taking that out of the equation, thinking about yourself and saying, like, what's best for me? What's best for my mental health? I could never be a freelancer. I have to have a schedule almost because I am so naturally disorganized that and stressed that I would not be able to keep it together. I'd be on my current job, I'd be like, oh my God, it's ending in 3 days.
Yes.
You know, constantly. And I am somebody, I know myself, I know I can't live that way, and I have massive respect for all of my clients that literally rely on me to somehow keep their careers together. That kind of I just had a little ding moment, and I was like, oh my God, that's intense.
It's a lot of pressure, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It helps that I really do love what I do. I can't imagine myself doing anything differently or different, period. I very much want to retire doing this at this company. It's rare that somebody is this content with their job and their life and feel fulfilled by it. But again, that's why this line of work is good for me, and it's consistent for right now. I'm very lucky to have a job, like I said, so fingers crossed. But the consistency would be 10 times worse if I was starting out right after film school right now. I think that's a whole other factor to this question, where like our answers would probably be radically different if this had been 5 years ago.
Right, because you started in the mailroom or however
like
many years ago.
9 years ago, yeah, a while ago.
And you knew from the mailroom that going the path of becoming an agent was...
No, I mean, I didn't know jack shit when I was in the mailroom. Sorry that if we're not, I'm terrible at that. But no, I didn't know. I said that, but it's like when you're, I feel like that was lifetimes ago, and all I wanted was just to be in it, like to be doing something. I knew I wanted to be in this industry, and I knew I wanted to help and be involved with creatives. And honestly, I didn't even know what below the line was when I was in the mailroom. We had one below the line agent at Gersh, and her assistant left, and everyone was like, you shouldn't interview for this, like you're never gonna stop working. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it kind of feels like that's the situation regardless, so like, I'm gonna try. So yeah, I did that, and I remember it being explained to me the first time, and I was like, this is a job, great, love it, and I would never do anything else. I feel super grateful to be in my little hub. There are 3 of us agents now, and it was just one female agent. We're here to speak about females. She was the first person, her name's Tara Cromer. She's been a below the line agent in New York for about 20 years, and is really one of the OGs in that way. She was the first person, period, either gender, that actually like believed in me and said, no, like you can do this. We don't bring each other up enough, and like we focus so much on tough love, and I think there's really a balance of, yeah, tough, but like you have to nurture people. We need love. We need to know when we're doing something right, and we need encouragement to balance out all the harshness that is in this industry, in this world, and that really, just having a little bit of encouragement gave me everything I needed to be confident enough in myself to grow. I never thought this would happen, so, excuse me. So yeah, this is long-winded.
No, I agree that when you have someone in your corner who believes in you, who trains you, who sees something in you.
It's just also, it's very rare. I feel
yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time. So many people don't have that opportunity.
I agree. Like, you could be in the right space at the right time, and you could show how passionate you are, and you could have the skills to back it up, but if there's not someone who's a little above you, who's willing to take a risk with you, then you could, just move on to the next and keep trying. Like Ashley and Leah, have you experienced when you were early on in your career, even now in your career, where someone believed in your idea or your story that you wanted to share, and either they built you up or they gave you pushback and you had to fight for yourself?
Yes. So when I started at Discovery Channel used to have an internal production company, and I was hired for the job because this is a tangent, but I was doing an AmeriCorps program for a year, and I like snuck into a secret hallway because Obama was going to be there, and I was like, I have to meet this man. And I started talking to this woman, and she's like, oh my gosh, you went to film school, you're about to finish this program, I have a friend who works for Discovery Channel, I'll put you in touch. So I cold called this woman after her friend introduced us, and for several months I just kept like harassing her. Hey, how you doing? Just letting you know I'm finishing my program on this day, blah blah blah. And she ended up being my boss for like 4 years. And she was absolutely amazing. I'm not still in touch with her just because it's like we were in Silver Spring, but she helped me so much. I was a PA for a year, and I went into her office one day and I was like, I've seen what the APs can do. Can I have an AP position? Like, I just asked her, and she was like, yes. Like, we'll figure something out. And I started off as a junior AP, but she was a big reason of like how I was able to advance. And when she realized it was time for me to leave the production company, she told me. She was just like, you know what? You're not gonna get much more here, so I'm gonna start connecting you with some of my other friends in the industry. And those connections allowed me to like keep going and get the jobs that I've had over the years. So to answer your question, yes, there was someone who helped me, and there's also been plenty of people who have been no help. I will not give them the energy, but yes, they exist.
But that's also massively valuable that somebody said to you, like, you can do more with your time. So many people will use you because you're so good.
Oh, 100%.
I just said it's so valuable that somebody told her, you know, I think your time is good here. Like, I'm going to connect you with some other people, because so many of us are so good at our jobs in that position, or at that point, across the board, like in all different ways, not the same position. You get what I mean. But yeah, and then people will just keep you there because you're so good at it, and you don't even know you have other opportunities.
Very quickly, so true. I was an AP for a very long time because apparently it's very difficult to find good APs. And everything I kept hearing was like, oh my gosh, you're so good, like, you're helping us so much. So even though people know that you can advance, they're just like, they don't want to take the time to either train or help someone else. So they keep you in that position.
So
you're happy with you.
Yes, exactly. So 100% agree.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And as we're you're talking about Obama, and you were talking about 8 years. Clearly, I am the elder of this this panel. I literally found my job, my original job. I'm from the DC area, and in the back of the Washington Post, I don't even know if they have ads in the back of the paper, but that's how I found my first job at working in production at CNN. And the woman who hired me, she hired me because she had always wanted to go to the college I went to. So literally, she was like, oh, you went there? I wish I could have gone there. And that's how I got my first job. And it was a part-time job, and I was just kind of, you know, feeling things out. I was actually working at a law firm at the time. I thought I was going to be a lawyer at some point. But having said that, the road to, and the pipeline just in general, to grow in this industry, it was not easy. And it is not easy when you don't come from wealth, if I'm being honest, because the early days of pay are very low, like almost unaffordable. Like for me, like I think my first job, I graduated from college, and you know, thank God I was able to live at home for a while, but I think I made like $8 an hour or something like that, like, which is like unsustainable. You know, I don't think they pay the interns that at this point, you know, or something. I don't know. I'm not. But all that to say, like, I did not have a ton of people trying to push me forward, no. And I did not realize that I needed that as much as I did to push myself forward, because my parents are very old school. They work the same job. My mother's a teacher. My dad was an accountant for the federal government. And it was very much like, we get this job, we work 30 years, and we retired, and that's what they did. And thank God they have great pensions, they don't need me. But the point of the matter is, that's how they were raised, and that's how they raised me. So I just thought, like, I work hard, I'll be the worker bee. They will recognize me, they will see, they will promote me, they will not, you know, they will not pay attention to you. And to your point, if you're doing a good job and you're not advocating for yourself, they will not care, and they will keep you in that position as long as you want to be there. I've been, you know, and I've heard of places, you know, and heard friends that are talking about APs who are in their 60s, you know, so it's like, if you do not be the person who takes control of your career, you will always stay in the same place. And that took me some time to figure out. So I wish, in many ways, I wish I had
you know, had somebody who was like looking at me like, you should do more. But, you know, in other ways, it really helps me find myself. And so like now I have that, you know, gumption, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, to propel myself forward, because I need it even more now that I'm in the freelance world, because you have to, you know, go and have the hard conversations, you go through negotiations, and, you know, it's important. No one's going to represent you like you. Yeah, I mean, besides Sylvie, of course.
But I'm not in the room when my clients are interviewing.
Yeah.
I'll harass the producer after.
This is all very relatable, especially as I'm a PA.
And SVU, I will say, would be the most in-house of PAing.
Oh, it's totally, it felt very corporate-y.
I was just saying, I was making a little joke that, you know, SVU, what season are we on? I've seen them all, but
it's very,
that's not stopping anytime soon.
No, it's not stopping, and
this is not me belittling your position.
No, not at all. They make these episodes with their eyes closed.
And I still eat them up every time.
Oh, same. It's a great job. Going back to, you know, advocating for yourself, clearly you guys advocated for yourselves, because now you have Emmys and you have films coming out. Like, Leah, you have Luther, I want to get the whole name, Luther Never Too Much, coming out. It's set for a theatrical release in November, and it will stream on CNN and Max in 2025.
Yes, plug.
So clearly you advocated for yourself, and we were discussing before how from start to finish it was less than a year.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how hard that is to do. So
especially with docs. Like,
So with documentaries, could you explain a little bit, I guess, the behind the scenes that went into it, and I guess what it takes to build this team and to get it all done?
Yeah, so our film, Luther unfortunately passed in 2005, so, you know, it's largely through archival. One of the mandates, I worked with director Dawn Porter and through her production company, and also I'd worked with her on another project prior to Luther, so we had a working relationship. But Luther had been years in the making. There's two of my producer partners that are London-based. Luther was under Epic, which is now Sony Music, and one of our producer partners had worked with him at Sony, and felt like he did not get his glory while he was alive. I mean, we love Luther. I mean, his voice is, you know, timeless, but there are people who don't know, you know, who he is. When we were at Sundance, people were coming up to me like, I'd never heard of him. This film is amazing, which is crazy, I know. So anyway, that producer partner, his name is Jed Doherty, he sought out the estate, and, you know, they said that, you know, so many people had come up to them before wanting to do a Luther doc, and they hadn't been the right fit. And another great thing that we had going for us is that Sony Music is now in the business, different from Sony Pictures. Sony Music is now in the business of documentaries, which is great because, you know, one of the main things, especially with music docs, is the music. You know, the music can be like so unaffordable. But because Sony owned, you know, the rights to Luther's music, we have whole songs in our doc, you know, of his performances, which if Sony didn't own that, we would have not been able, I mean, it's just, you know, so cost prohibitive. So long story short, because of the relationship that our other producer had with Sony, and then they got the family on board, they were looking for a director. Dawn directed, I produced it, and, you know, Dawn and I met with the family. They liked us. They thought we would be able to tell the story well. And from then on, it was like in January, we just kind of hit the ground running. And, you know, we've had, I think, 25 shoot days, you know, extensive archival. Some of the archival was owned by Primary Wave, which owns a lot of, like, artists, Whitney Houston, Prince, you know, all the Prince drama or whatever. Like, they own a lot of his archives. And then Sony also had extensive archives in their building, which were not in as great a shape as the Primary Wave ones, as the person who had to look through all that stuff. But yeah, so, and this is where I say, you know, my skills in terms of, you know, when I worked on Anderson Cooper 360, it was a daily show. I turned stuff like this, maybe not to this extent, but like I would turn projects and packages every day. So to me, like, everyone feels like a year is a short amount of time, but I feel like, wow, I had like a whole year. Like, I could, you know, go and, you know, really, you know, section out everything and make sure it made sense. And we had, you know, the director had a great cinematographer and editor, and all of us worked so well together that, you know, it really went pretty seamless. But I mean, I was interviewing, you know, some of the subjects. I would back them up 2 days. One days I did, not 2 days, 2 a day. And then one day I did 4 interviews in one day. Like, so just to be able to stay with the network schedule. So yeah, and then I think, so basically we were at Final Cut pretty close to submitting to Sundance. I think we submitted in November of last year. Wow. And then we premiered in January at Sundance, so.
That must have been a really cool experience getting to see it.
Yes, I mean, especially on the, like, in front of everyone at Sundance, and we had, he had some really close collaborators who actually gave musical performances of his songs, like his main background singers that are featured in the film. They came and performed at Sundance before the airing, before their initial screening. I think we had 10 screenings, so it was just you know, doing all the Q&As and everything. People were just so supportive, and we got a lot of love. So I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's a great film. Literally.
Yeah, we're all gonna have to watch it.
I was there.
Oh, you
when
were?
the performances at Sundance.
Oh, yeah. Wow, yeah.
Like at the premiere.
At the Eccles.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great.
I was not up front because I always sit. I can't deal with that theater.
Yeah.
Especially when I cry, I have to be way in the back. But it was pretty amazing.
No, it was. I mean, I didn't cry. I don't know if I am capable of crying on it to this point, just because I've seen it so many times and put it together. But it was like so many people around me that were just like tears streaming, and it was just a great moment, I think, for the family too, because it felt like a very full circle moment for him, you know, for them to have gone, who have wanted to go through this process, but I think they were a little fearful, which can happen sometime with the states. You know, they want to make sure, I mean, as we've seen some of the stuff play out recently in the news with, you know, the states not feeling like the director got it right, or, you know, and then sometimes the network can get involved and it's not their vision, and who gets final say, like all of that stuff can happen and delay your film, but luckily we, you know, it's nothing but love between us, so.
And what would you say are like the top skills that all below the line members possess or need to possess in order to get movies made, and in order for cinematographers to get signed by an agency? What are some things that you look for and things that you think that you look for in others when you're building a team and hiring?
That's a great question. I'll go first just since I'm holding the mic. But I think I always look for people who are curious. You know, somebody who they may not have it all figured out, but they want to know more. You know, they don't just stop at like you tell them one thing and then they're like, okay, done. You know, for me, I'm just like, okay, curiosity. Well, what happens next? And I'm always asking. The journalist part of my brain is always like, okay, how do we get here, and how else can we get here? Can we make it work? And people who just don't take no, you know, have a certain tenacity, don't take no for an answer, you know, because sometimes the first answer is no. And that doesn't mean, like, there are a few times, just using Luther for example, there, maybe a guest or some character we really wanted said no, and I'm just like, I don't believe in no's. Like, you don't have to tell me to my face that it's not going to work. And more often than not, people can come around. So I think those are like my two biggest things, that I look for.
Awesome.
I would say persistence and creativity, but I'm going to say creativity in a different way. So Summer of Soul, one of the main things that I did was, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but we had characters in the film who were at the festival. So Summer of Soul is about this music festival, 1969 Harlem. And one of my tasks was to find the festival goers who could speak about the festival. And when you ask most people about this festival, people are like, I've never heard of it, even if they grew up in New York. Like, my father grew up in New York. He's like, I had no idea this even happened. So I had to be very creative with how I found the festival goers. So I was hanging out in Harlem at, like, community meetings. I was on Facebook in different Facebook groups. Yeah. I went to a library. I can't even remember what library, but they were having, like, there was a dance group that performed at the festival, and they were having a reunion. And I went to their reunion to see if anyone there had been at the festival or knew people at the festival. And so, like, I had to think outside the box. Like, to your point of not taking no for an answer, it's sort of like, okay, it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm sorry, no one's heard of this festival, we can't find anyone. But to actually take it a step further and, like, okay, how else can I look into this? It's like, there's a journalistic aspect to it too. Like, you have to be able to investigate and do a deep dive to actually find what you need. One of the film that I directed, there was this story that all the basketball players on the team told, and there was no footage of it whatsoever. We're like, we need to tell the story, but it wasn't gonna come through, so we decided to animate it. So that was the only bit of animation in the film, but we're like, we need to tell this story, how can we tell it? So we just had someone animate it. So it's like, you have to think outside the box, be creative, and just be willing to just think differently.
Yeah. I love that.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so I guess from an agent point of view, when you're looking to sign different cinematographers and production designers and all below the line people, how do you pick who you sign? What are you looking for? Is it their resume? Maybe it's an up and coming new cinematographer that has buzz. Like, how do you get to pick?
I hate this question.
Oh, we could bypass.
No, I'm gonna answer it. I just needed to hear it again because I was like, how do I answer
You know what?
this?
I think I just switched it on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's just too hard of a question right now because I'm like I'm really not signing anyone, period, even if they have great credits, just because my priority is to the people I've represented for 5 or more years, that have been out of work for 2 years and have lost insurance for their entire family and can't pay off their house. Like, it's very, very difficult for me to get into a headspace like, oh, this person's gonna be so hot, when I'm like very emotionally involved in the people that I have been working with since my career started. So that's the first part of it, like really not signing anyone. The second part of it is that I think in agencies that are like Gersh is one of the like big 5 Hollywood agencies, I think when you're at that point, it is more difficult to have the ability to sign like true up and coming cinematographers. Like, I could see somebody's reel that has done a ton of shorts that are like life-changing and truly just like blow me away, and so much artistic work that I do pay attention to. It would be difficult for me to make the person more successful because I'm not speaking to people who would be paying attention to that, unfortunately. And even though the amount of times I point studios and execs to up-and-coming people, they will look at it and then they're like, but is this 75-year-old white male DP available to shoot this story about like this POC trans middle schooler? And it's like, you're wrong, like wrong answer. I don't know what to say, but I have to be honest about that. Like, that's the SHIT that keeps happening to me on the phone every day. And it's like extremely frustrating to even figure out how to be an up-and-comer when everybody says they want something, but they don't know what it means. So, and I'm sure my answer is making no sense. So I'm just like, it's a very difficult thing for me to wrap my head around, but yeah, I can expand on it in a smarter way another time. But when I am on the phone with somebody, if we're at that point and it's like, you've got the credits and the recognition and it's a place that this is aside from, I'm pretending I'm like in a kind of different money climate right now, that more things are happening and I can like put 1 million people on jobs. I mean, I'm talking to the person because I already like their work and I recognize what they do. The number one most important thing to me will always be kindness. Like, I'm a huge kindness stan. I will not represent any assholes because then I'll hear from a producer. I've gotten so many bad reports that it's like, we can't have liability for that, and I wouldn't want my name to be on that because I would never treat somebody, I have to trust my clients to do their job and to be good people and good energy on set and kind to others without even thinking about it. And that's harder than you'd think. I think there's a lot of kind of emotional abuse that goes on in this industry, on set, behind the scenes, that it's like, if I can do one thing, just like be nice, be a good person, especially as an agent. It's like, I'll get on the phone with people and they're like, oh, you seem like a real human. And I'm like, yeah, what?
They say that?
I've had people be like, well, yeah, people have actually said that to me. They're like, oh, you sound like a real person. Because agents can be very agenty. I've never, I don't think I could do that if I tried to, because I'm like this, I'll just keep talking. But no, it's important, be true to yourself, be who you are, and be kind. And as an agent, yeah, people, because you can put on a front to negotiate something or play hardball or whatever. You can still put your foot down and not be an asshole about it.
Yeah, you could be sweet and assertive simultaneously.
Yep. Just be you. You don't need to put on a really intense front it's just not worth it. It's not worth your energy.
Yeah. And so let's just say Steven Spielberg is making a new film and no one's attached to it yet, but maybe he has some ideas of a cinematographer, production designer that he wants to work with. How do you get your people that you represent in the running? How does that
I
work?
don't.
Oh, okay.
Well, just because, again, this is I have to reality check a little here. Obviously, that was an extreme example. But all of these people, it's not Spielberg's and Tarantino's, yes, they're them. But now we're at a point where, the directors that are at Sundance, they already have their, a lot of them have their career people that they have used for their first 3 films. That doesn't mean, obviously, I'm going to pick up the phone and try to get everybody in there. But on a Spielberg film, we cover it. If somebody's not available, of course, we try to get in there. But I think it's also about, educating the clients and really, you know, it's all about these reality checks and the education, and that Spielberg is Spielberg. There will be another version of that that is for our generation that we don't know is happening yet, and that's all part of the up and comingness of it all. But yeah, I mean, these are all just such hard questions. I feel like I have 10 answers to everything.
And Spielberg's super talented. I mean, Spielberg's
Of
super
course.
talented, but he's made just like everybody else.
Yes,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like, it's somebody taking the chance, somebody seeing his vision. And I think that, I know when I'm hiring people, I really try to look for people who may not have like the perfect resume. Maybe you didn't do 10 documentary films. Maybe you just did one. Like the AP I hired on Luther, like she did a small short that was at Tribeca that she was a producer on, but I saw her as like, let me, speaking back to people who did not give me the opportunity, let me give her the opportunity, because at this level of her career, she's a young woman and in her 20s, you know, it's like there's lots of you're not expected to know everything. You just need somebody to give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know,
and we have to create that where it doesn't exist.
And to your point, just about, you know, people, it's all about kindness. A lot of it's about relationships. You know, once you work well with somebody, you tend to want to work with them again, you know, and that's a reality of, I think, probably any working environment, but even more so with production, you know.
It's a lot about trust.
It's a lot about trust, to know the person can get the job done if you're not like standing over them. Like the team that I assembled for Luther, like I would work with them a million times, you know, because it's like, I think no matter what the subject would be, I know they're capable of getting it. And so I think it's hard to break through that for new and up-and-coming people.
At that high, also, can I use that for 1 second?
Sorry, yeah, I'm also gonna, I'm sure, listen back to this and be like, I didn't mean any of this, so. Also, so much of it is, Spielberg is not up to the director. I see directors all the time that are super avant-garde and have a vision and have somebody they want to shoot this. The studio puts big studio movies, you have a lot of roadblocks that, yes, an agent can be pushing for you, the rest of the crew can be pushing for you that's already attached, a director, a lot of times if you have some like big fancy actor, they can have a say in things too. There's so many like cooks in the kitchen in that aspect. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the studio is financing the movie, and this is not constantly, it's not like a hard and fast always rule, but they're the ones like making the final decisions and calling the final shots most of the time. The last step will always be studio approval. So it's hard. We all have visions of what we want things to be and versions of that. And I think it's about kind of negotiating with yourself and with reality, and it's just always going to be different, but it's more difficult than you'd think.
You might feel differently. I think the doc space is a little bit different, whereas directors have more of a say. Like, yes, they usually have, like, you might have to talk to the production company you're working with, or if they're investors, sort of give that list of approval, but the doc space is a little bit different, where I think directors have more say in who they're hiring, like a DP or something like that.
And I rep doc DPs also, and the same directors will still go to them first.
I was just saying, I work on docs also with DPs and editors, and I have one DP. I'm like wondering if it's the same Biden project you were talking about, but he works with the same director over and over again, but it doesn't mean that director will never work with somebody else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the director, there was nobody at like Time Studios coming in and being like, we can't use him. They pretty much give the lens to the director or the people that are, the studios are more removed, I want to say. It's not my bread and butter, but that's what I've experienced in the doc space.
All right, and then I guess moving it back from the studios down to, I guess, where we are. Could you describe a moment when, I guess, your background, Ashley, in producing helped you overcome an obstacle, like on set, like on set of Summer Soul?
Like every 5 minutes.
Okay, Summer Soul was kind of a weird one because we started in like towards the end of 2019, so I think we started in October, and then our first shoot was December, and then the world shut down in March. So a lot of the challenges were more like things that we'd never experienced before. I mean, we all have very different personalities, but for the most part, I think we all worked well together. So like Summer Soul, I don't have great examples from that one because it was a different beast. We were all working in a space that we weren't familiar with. I think the biggest thing is being creative. So because everything shut down and we still had more shoots to do, it was like, okay, how can we get these shoots done? How can we make sure everyone's safe? How do we stay on track to make sure that we're delivering things?
Crazy time.
Oh, it was insane. And I actually, we ran out of money, so like I ended up dropping off of the project towards the end, and I came back for like a few interviews, but it was a challenge because no one was, we're like, okay, what are we supposed to do? Like there were things that we didn't have to factor in. So I don't really have a great answer to that one.
Yeah, and I guess because the industry is now so different because of COVID and the strike, and I feel like we touched upon this a little bit, but what would you say to aspiring producers or someone who wants to break into the world of documentaries or scripted production? Like, what advice would you give them now? Like, how do you go about entering this career, because it's a lot of who you know, and there's so many different angles you could take. Like, I guess when you're an agent, maybe it's the traditional mailroom route, but are there other ways to break in? And yeah.
I think you have to be your own advocate. You have to put yourself out there. I think what happens is sometimes people just expect, I submit a resume or I do this, so everything will work out, or maybe it won't. But you like cold call people, be willing to show up. I sent out, so I lived in the DC area for a while, and I was like, I need to move to New York. That's where I'm gonna find more work. And I just started reaching out to different production companies. I reached out to people that I knew
I did the same thing.
To connect me. But there were some production companies I just reached out to, and my plan was like to move here whether I had a job or not. And thankfully it worked out. But it was just like I was persistent. I kept pushing, and it is a grind. Don't get me wrong. It is such a grind where it's like some people won't even respond to an email.
Most.
And I will say, like, I'm bad at responding, but if people like
Me too.
email me back, most likely I'm gonna be like, oh, okay.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's not at all.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't feel like you are being annoying or anything, just email us a second time. I promise you, most times people will get back to you that second time, because a lot of times we see the email like, okay, let me get back to this person, and a million things happen. Or
if we don't have anything, a lot of times, which is bad, but I was like, if somebody reaches out to me, like either on LinkedIn or whatever, if I don't have anything, that doesn't mean that I didn't see it, and you're not in my mind if things come up. But sometimes I won't immediately respond because I'm like, I'm not have anything to tell them besides good luck, and I like to
it's like one of those things like hurry up and wait, because as soon as I find something, I'm like, you know, I really have tried in my career to nurture, especially young women of color, you know, to nurture their careers, because there's just not enough people looking out for us, I'm gonna be honest. And so, you know, whenever somebody comes my way with that, you know, I'm always like, you know, in the back of my head, I just connected somebody with a job and they sent me a thank you last week, and it just happened to come over. I was like, I think this person will be perfect for this, and it worked out, you know. So don't take the no as a rejection. I mean, we've all been, you know, ghosted by people before. The characters, job people, pitches, whatever, you know. So it's like, it's part of the game.
I think it's also when you reach out to people, how you put yourself out there. So if someone reaches out to me like, I need a job, or I'm looking for XYZ, and you don't have anything, it's a lot harder to get back to them. But if you reach out and say, hey, I'm just interested in talking and I have questions, that's a much better route to go than looking for a job. Most times people who reach out to me just to ask questions or just have a coffee, I am more inclined to like get back to them quicker. And then like you said, as soon as something pops up, because like I still have, most of my friends are still on the freelance side. As soon as something pops up, I'm like, oh yes, I know someone. I can give their name. So I would suggest that if you are looking for connections or jobs, don't put it out there as like, I need a job. Put it out there as like, hey, can we meet? I'd love to grow my network. I'd love to get to know you. I've heard great things. Something like that.
It's like relationship building.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said is really smart, and I guess I've never thought of it as something I would like give advice about, but yeah, being smart about how you reach out. I am like smirking at this question because as a below the line agent, the amount of actors that reach out to me is a joke. And the amount of actors that reach out to me with 86 other agents CC'd. Like, please, and I wish, you know, I'm like joking about it, but it's like, I wish these people had education towards what to do, because they're clearly trying. They're putting in the effort, putting themselves out there. So like, yes, I'm laughing at it because it seems ridiculous, but it's like this person doesn't have the resources to know. And that sucks even more. So yeah, just using as much of your knowledge as you can, being yourself to a point. Another actor email I got the other day had like a PS at the bottom. I always read them. They're always interesting and a good time. This one had a PS at the bottom, said, I married my husband because he took me to Olive Garden on our first date and the girl was hungry. And I was like, I will be sending this to all my friends.
Maybe she's trying to be relatable.
It was. And but like, is that going to get me to respond to her email? Or is it going to get me to talk to my friends about it? Like, you know, I think, yes, right. If you're in this audience, I loved it, but unfortunately I can't help you. Like, you know, I don't know. It's just such a slippery slope, and I feel for everyone. And as you said, a lot of people will come to me for representation, and I just have to be like, no, not just no, but you know, I always say I'm always open to like having a conversation. You know, talk for 15 minutes on the phone and give somebody what they don't have. It'll help them more than you know, and it takes how much out of my day? Like it really can make a difference. But yeah, we can't hire everyone. We can't sign everyone. Nobody can do everything, and we wouldn't want to, or else we wouldn't be at Sundance or Emmy winning or having Emmy winning clients or blah, blah, blah. And
Oscar.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
I'm just gonna pass the mic.
That's amazing. Right, Oscar winning. That's right in 2022. I mean, I guess can you talk a little bit about that? Your experience?
Winning the Oscar. The Oscars. What do you?
Everything.
That was the crazy Oscar.
Okay. Yes. So. That was the Chris Rock Oscars.
Now you gotta talk about it.
Yeah. So it was great working on the project. It was a labor of love. The festival goers that I found, I'm still in touch with them. Like I had one text me and the producer the other day, like, hey, can we go grab lunch? So like first of all, it was a great opportunity. Cora and I, that was the first project we worked on together, and now I'm like in a book club with Cora, and we're very good friends. That was the Chris Rock smacking Will Smith Oscars, and that was actually the category. Yeah. So I was actually sitting with Cora. And we're like, oh, this is great, and I mean, it was a great time. Like we were dressed up. The Oscars is insane. All the people you see and everything. So we're sitting there, and Will Smith starts yelling, and then we see him walk up on stage, and he smacks Chris Rock, and I'm like, oh no, this is part of the show. Definitely part of the show. And my mom starts texting me, and she's like, I'm watching, and there's no more sound. What's going on? I'm like, oh shit, like this is not part of the show. And it was wild, and I feel like it's kind of funny because when you tell people that, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that one. Whereas
People told me they were scared at the Oscars.
I don't know about scared.
Maybe they were extra.
I will
think he was going to start smacking everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like they said like the energy got really weird. It's scary. Now it sounds stupid coming out of my mouth. So
I'm very tense.
Yeah.
For like a few minutes, and then if anything, I feel bad because like Amir, Questlove, and the producers got on stage, and it kind of took away from their moment. Yeah. But afterwards, we were all like in the lobby hanging out, and I won't lie, Will Smith won his Oscar and came out, and he was like, hey, and like Amir's like, Will, let's take a selfie, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so like once the moment was over, and of course like the news and everyone picking it up and like everyone's tweeting about it, but in the moment everyone just kind of moved on and continued with the night and had a good time. It was a great night, that moment aside, and like
that really added to it. Let's be real.
Okay.
Like you were there at that Oscar.
I know, like my cousins all FaceTime me that morning, and they're like, "Oh my God, what happened?" But no, it was a great experience. When I signed on for the project, like no one had actually. We had investors, but there was no network attached. There was no. Distributor anything, so we were just like, okay, we're making this project. There were like 5 of us doing Summer of Soul. It was like we had our line producer, Amir the director, producer, I was the AP on it, and we had an editor like that, and we had a production manager.
Was there a first AD?
No. Like when we had our shoots, but like day to day, there were not many of us. So to go from a very small team to a project winning an Oscar, it's insane. Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yes. Congrats. Yeah. And at such a memorable, you know it. Yeah. Yes. Well, I'm wondering, does the audience have any specific questions? Yeah? Okay, let's see. Yeah, of course.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and I'm a screenwriter. Thank you all for being here, for talking to us. This is like really informative and really candid real talk. And I graduated from one of the fancy film school that you mentioned, American Film Institute, from at 2018. And most of my connections are out of work. So I understand that. I really appreciate the real talk.
To be clear, so did I. I went to NYU not for film, and we're all everyone's out of work, so.
Yeah, it's like post-apocalyptic in Hollywood right now. So my question is for Sylvie. Is there a below-the-line screenwriting representation? And another question is, from your experience, obviously like right now is not a good time, but from your experience, have you seen a below-the-line client go above the line? Like how does that work? And also at the same time, I just want to mention that I'm working on a lot of vertical short form right now. That's what's going on in Hollywood.
Yes. Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With screenwriting, I think that would be like a literary agent, which is that considered above the line? It's a tricky line that clearly I don't know. Yeah, I guess it depends, but we have an entire literary department that's separate. And yeah, so that's that question. Going from below the line to above the line, I would assume that you meant like something along the lines of going from a cinematographer to a director or something like that.
I guess because I thought, I actually don't know what below the line and above the line, like what does that mean, like what that line is.
That's a good question. I guess can someone just share the differences and of below the line and above the line?
I think it comes from literally budgets, like actors, directors, and I believe like writers. Certain positions are above one budget line, and then like the DP, the editor, the line producer are in another section. But I think that's an antiquated term. Most of the time I just say I rep crew. Formally, my job description is below the line, but yeah, we don't, it's not a hard line anymore. But when you say above the line, I think like director, writer, actor. I don't have any clients trying to be actors, thank God. I have some that are interested in directing, and I support whatever they do. The problem is I just have zero knowledge in that category, and I don't have the connections to really get them where they'd want to be in that world. So I would just, like we've said here, my whole career is built on cold calling, and it still is. Like, I still do that every day. I'm still the person being ghosted by producers when I email out, and then you were like, send them another email. I'm like, or 5, you know? Everyone gets harassed and everyone's obnoxious, so there's no, like, do whatever you have to do. But yeah, I'm like not answering the question and just on a tangent. But if you want to be a director or a writer, and you are you're in the crew, I would just say use the resources you have, like while on set, to like ask the first AD if you can ask a question. I don't even know if this is a possibility, so please somebody.
No, it is. It definitely is.
You know, that's what I would do. I would just use where you are and what you have to get as much knowledge as you can, and yeah, just cold call everybody you think won't call you back and see what happens. Still doing it.
Yeah.
Still works sometimes.
I think another good point you brought up was you're doing a lot of short form video vertically, and I guess how has social media impacted the...
Does that just mean like iPhone? Am I...
Maybe, or
sorry.
Or you're taking like part of your documentary, and I guess maybe that's more of like the marketing side, is then throwing it on social for more eyes to see.
I probably not.
Oh,
I don't know. The answer to this question.
Yeah, TikTok.
Sorry, is that what you mean?
That's
or
what
you
I
like
thought.
different like media sites and everything? You're doing verticals for them.
No, it's more like short form TV shows, mini series, like 1 minute and 1.5 minutes an episode.
Yeah.
But yes, it's usually on the app. It's you watch on your phone.
Got it.
Oh,
Like Quibi.
Yes, but it's a different app now.
the short-lived experience.
Yeah, it's exactly what Quibi was trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's smart. Like, I don't have a lot of experience in that space, but the one thing that I always like come back to is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot, and how the guy who did it, he like just did his own video and posted it, and then Will Smith picked it up, and now it's a series. So I don't think that hurts, but
yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with that either, but I think anytime you can put content out and original content and get eyes on it, I think is a great thing, you know, because if so many people, you know, are tuned into social media and the apps and what's on there, and you'd be surprised who's watching your stuff and may come to you. Like, I think of like Issa Rae, like, you know, when she did Awkward Black Girl, that was just started as a YouTube, you know, short, I mean not short, but YouTube docuseries. And now, you know, obviously she went on to do Insecure, and, you know, she's made her name in acting and directing and so many things. So I think that's a great plan. And I also, I have a friend now who, you know, who has years in the industry, but he just did that with his own actual short film. It's like a 20-minute short, you know, and submitting to the festivals, that's another way, especially if they're for screenwriting, there's also, you can submit to different, you know, contests and labs, and, you know, Sundance has installations. I mean, there are all types of those type of resources that also require some research, but I mean, there are opportunities out there that aren't just, you know, immediately, you know, getting signed with Sylvee, yeah. Or someone like Sylvee, yeah.
There are also a lot of grants. Like, people are giving away money and we don't know about it while we're all sitting here. So, not to me, but there are tons of short film grants. There are tons of screenwriting grants. Random things, like, Google it. And the only other thing I would say is, if you're putting content out on those platforms that are available to anyone, just protect yourself and know what you're signing off on your content when you are releasing it to the world, because I sure as hell have not read every single word of the user agreement privacy policy for Instagram and all of that. Like, you know, I would hate if somebody's brilliant idea was stolen by Netflix. That's you know, that happens every day. So yeah, that's just my advice.
Yeah, 100%, you know. And if it's something that is like, I mean, we're all kind of like secretive about the stuff that's pretty close to us, you know. Like, I wouldn't put something you've been working on for years just on YouTube, you know, like not without like some type of password. I mean, to shop it around, if it's like you're screening it for people or you're trying to get funding, that's one thing, but like, I just wouldn't put it out there for everyone to see, no.
Okay. Well, oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. Just want to thank you so much for such a lovely conversation about the industry and everything. Yeah, if we didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. But yeah, if we just give her a big round of applause.
Great moderator.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Leah, Ashley, and Sylvee for being here. Thanks. Thank you.
Obsessed.